the minute you create a client, all the tasks schedule for it. So like I said, don't hesitate to reach out. So then in terms of the navigating of the app, you will see the list of tables down the left with various departments that you just click on to expand. And as I said, the minute a client record is saved with the applicable tasks here on the right hand side switched on, those tasks will automatically schedule. And so in your data upload, you're going to see those same columns to select from. You can leave them empty and then switch them on in the app. So basically the three mandatory columns for a successful data upload is going to be the client name, their status, and the entity type. And then all of the rest you can then just select in the app if you prefer. So to edit a record, just click on it and expand it, and then you will see all of the different fields there. And as I said, you can then switch on and make the applicable selections for all of the tasks that you perform for that client. There's a couple of setups that you need to go through. You will add other users to your subscription by inviting them in the accountant table, and you will simply click on add record, enter their name and email address, and then you can customize the access that they have to the app as well. And so you will currently be an admin, and please leave yourself as the admin because that is the full access to the system. The second setup that you will need to do is the rate groups. And that is going to be useful if you're going to keep track of your time in the app. And if you don't bill necessarily for variable time, but you bill fixed retainers, you can still make use of the timekeeping portion because we have many reports available to actually show your profitability within a fixed retainer. And so what the rate group does is allows you to customize how you bill your clients depending on the kind of client that they are. So if you have one fixed fee across the board, then you would only have one rate group. But if you have different structures, you can create them. And so we give these as examples just to show you what we mean by that. So you'll see here for variable clients, we have what we call a standard rate group. We've got a small retainer, discounted rates, even no charge, etc. And then you can, if it is a fixed fee, so flat fee regardless of time worked, for a certain number of tasks, you will then assign a value for that per month. And then if you click on this, so the small retainer, under included services, you are going to specify the tasks by clicking on add record, the tasks that we time for and schedule for in the app that are included in that monthly 2,000 Rand. And then what happens is, regardless of whether the time is worked, you will get a billing report that you can use to create invoices from. So you can really customize how your billing structure works within the app, and it saves you a lot of time. And then once you've created your different rate groups, whether it be 1 or 5 or 10, depending on your firm, you need to go to the rates table. And this is where you are going to specify the variable rate for each task within that rate group. So if it's not a fixed retainer of, let's say, 2,000 Rand a month, but you charge it ad hoc or like once-off fees if it's not a retainer client, you then need to assign a value to that so that the reports will work correctly. And so again, we've rolled out to your databases this example, and you can then edit the records, make changes. You can also delete the entire table. I would, for example, download it. So select all and say download, and then it's going to give you a CSV file. and then you can clear it and it will give you in the CSV the headings, and you can then chop and change and add back the rates that apply to your firm. Okay. This is a little bit of a complicated process, but if you set it up correctly, then billing takes you 2 hours instead of 2 days. We've got a really good blog post explaining how to do this, and you'll find it if you go to our resources tab. You will see quite a few blog posts here about the various features of the app, short little videos or text to read through on the specific feature. So it's also a great place if you're stuck on anything, come to the resources tab. But specifically for rate groups, we've got you a Excel template as well that you can download with a whole bunch of explanation on the easiest way to sort out your rates. Okay. And it really is worth the time that it will take to set it up. You'll see there the download file is quite extensive. And like I say, it takes billing for me from 2 days down to 2 hours. So it's a huge deal. Okay. So those two setup tables are important. And in the Excel file that you will use to upload your clients, you will notice that there is also a rate group column there. And if you want to complete it at this level, you can, in the tips and formats, in column B, where it's labeled rate group, whatever names that you've added in your rate group table over here for the different groups, if you save them in this column, they turn into a drop down for you to select in the Excel. Okay, so it will make your life a lot easier. Then the upload goes that much quicker. The same with your accountants that you add. So John being yourself, or any staff that you invite to the app, if you save their names in column E, where you assign them to the clients as the different roles, you will then be able to select from a drop down as well. The Excel file, by the way, is a XLSX file, not a CSV, as you would be accustomed to importing into other systems. And the biggest reason for that is you won't lose any formatting around cell phone numbers beginning with zeros. So it's not going to do anything strange to your ID numbers, like convert them to scientific or anything like that if you have to reopen the file. So just make sure that you do save it as the XLSX, and then just delete row 2 where we give you all the tips and hints on how to complete it. Then once you've saved your file, again, under setup is the data upload, and you will import your file by saying add record, click save and edit, and then at the top here, a documents tab will appear. And then you will add your file that you are ready to import. Come back to details and click save. And then once that processes, you'll see a date and time processes there with a note of how many clients it's uploaded. You will see that your client table is then uploaded. Okay. And in that upload process, whatever tasks you had switched on in the Excel, sorry, as I scrolled there, if you freeze that lock there on any table, it freezes the first column so that you can see which client you're still working on. But so in the Excel, any tasks that you had selected as true in your import will save accordingly and automatically schedule at the same time. So it's a one-step process, and all of the tasks automatically populate in the different tables. The first feature of the app that is going to help you keep track of your deadlines and the tasks that are coming up is the all tasks due dashboard. And what this is it's going to show you the accountant responsible with the due date and the various tasks coming up. And you'll see numbers in these little blue blocks for each task for those due dates. And this is an interactive table, and that if you click on that number, it's going to take you to the accounting table, and it filters immediately on the information that you selected. And so you can then go and complete the task directly. And it is also color coded. I just want to see if the sorting is off. Yeah. So here you will see I just sorted the column by ascending, and all of these red blocks mean that the due date of these tasks has passed. Okay. Yellow means it's due within the next 7 days from today. And then white is anything scheduled after that. So obviously anything in the red is going to be a big priority. You want to go and see why the task has not yet been completed. And if you click on it, hopefully you would have made a note for yourself that maybe you didn't receive the payroll figures and you followed up 100 times. So in each task table, there is a notes column, there is a status for whether it's in progress or not, and all the checkboxes needed to complete a particular task. So it's important to make use of that information so that you're not having to remember or refer back to other notes each time. Okay. This also gets emailed as a report every Monday morning with the 30-day snapshot of what's due. So it shows all of the due dates that have been missed and then 30 days into the future, so that you get a Monday morning reminder of what to accomplish in that time period. Okay. The other feature, which obviously makes sense if you're more than one user in the app, is the chat. This is an internal communication tool that allows you on any record to begin a conversation. And so if you're the sole user of the app, you could even save notes here for yourself, because you can also access the chat. So if you wanted to use that as a reminder, you can type a message and send it, and then it appears in the My Chats, and it shows you which client it's on and which task, and you can then click on the unread message count, which for the other person would show a 1, and then you will see your note there. And to communicate with other people in the app, you will just type the @ symbol, and your accountant list pops up as a selection, and you can address it directly to that person. We have various reports available. The ones in the firm reports are the billing information. So I'll show you that in a little bit once I explain the time logging. And then we have other reports that include the to-do list. So this is the summary of the all tasks due. As I mentioned, you get that every Monday morning, and you open a report by clicking on the arrow over there, and you'll see then a summary per accountant of the dashboard. And if you go onto further pages, it gives you per accountant the actual name of the task, as well as the clients and any notes that may have been saved as well. So rather than having to click on every little number, you can also see this detailed view. We then have a summary of the VAT returns with due dates coming up, so that you can see if anything has been left unpaid or not yet submitted. And then the data audits, not sure if this one has. So The data audit basically runs through the various tables to see if there's any mistakes or misselections that have been made. So here you can see in our accountant table, we have allocated a task to Yanni, but he has no rights to the database. And so he's not going to be able to see which task is allocated to him. Or on the client side, we're telling you that you've selected turnover tax and income tax for this client, and you only needed to select turnover tax. Okay, so that's a useful report. And then, like I said, I will show you the billing reports a little bit later on. In the other tables, we have our task tables and the firm and ad hoc, the CIPC tasks and the SARS task tables are manual tables, meaning they don't automatically schedule anything because they are by their nature once off or every now and then tasks. And so you will add them to your table in order to track them by clicking add record. And the firm and ad hoc tasks, there is a list of administrative tasks, many internal tasks. If you want to track for that, make notes of that, you can. And if there's any here you'd like us to add to the list, just let us know. But basically, if it is client specific, let's say, for example, a UIF registration, you will select the task, select the client, you'll select the status. You can then assign it to an accountant, a partner, and a manager, and give it a due date. And then if you click save, you can now time on this task by clicking on the blue timer. So any record in any table, if you click on it and the timer is blue, you can push play and it automatically times for you. And what it does is in the time log department, it immediately creates that record and you'll see it as a current time by being the one in the table without an end time because I'm currently timing. And if you hover over the time, you'll see there that it shows you which client and which task you're currently working on. And if you push stop, it automatically updates the time log table and it will show you the start and end time, the description, as well as the duration. And you can, in the firm settings table, specify if you round your time at all. And then we give you the actual time as well as the rounded time. And that is for any task in any table. Once you have completed a task, if you change the status of any task to completed, it will move the task from the current table to its archive table. So if you click save there, it moves it to the archive completed table, and there you will see it there. And if you accidentally archive something, simply click on the record, change its status back to anything other than completed, and it will pop back up to the current table. You can do this in bulk by selecting any number of records, tick boxes on the left, and then under actions, say mark complete, and it will archive them for you. The other feature that I just wanted to show you, on any column, we have a sort function. So you can sort, and then we have a really intuitive filter that we've just rolled out in our latest upgrade, which is the advanced filter, where you can filter on multiple columns and you can make it an and or an or filter. So if, say, for example, I just want to use a table with more records. If I filter over here on clients and I'm looking for contains MA, and so now it's going to filter that. And then I'm looking for a specific accountant and I filter there. you will see I can now select, it automatically switches on the advanced filter, and I can look for accountant equals or contains Jan, and I can set it to all. So then what happens is if it's a complex search that you're trying to do, you don't have to undo the one filter to then look for something else. You can say, if you find it in column A, or if you find what I'm looking for in column B, display that. Then it will do that for you and expand your search. Okay, so it's really a great feature, especially when your tables get very long. You can filter. You can also set your rows per page. I personally prefer 200 because you can then just scroll down instead of scrolling or clicking on the pages at the bottom. But you can set that feature over there. And you can also save a feature, a filter, sorry, by giving it a name and clicking save. And then next time you come back to that table under filters, you just need to apply the filter and it will research for you. So if you find yourself searching for something over and over again, you can then just search or click on that filter. And if you make it a global filter, you can then apply it across all your users in the database. So if it's something that everyone will search for very often, then you can do that. A good example would be the clients table. If you want to always be able to see the entity types who are active, you would then search for, let's say, individuals and status is active, and then save that as a filter called individuals, and then you can apply it. So here we have an example of active and small retainers. And so here you can see it's filtered for me, and it shows you over here which filter you've applied. Okay, so it's a really nice way to navigate a lot of data. All right, back to the tasks. The specialized task table is a very special table. This allows you as the user to create and name a task that we do not schedule for, and you can then populate and create this task and schedule it on your own terms. So if there's anything that you do for a client that we do not have an existing table or task name for, you can create it here and set its reoccurrence in the setup section using the specialized scheduler. And so when I think of this table, I think of things that are very unique to a client, that it maybe only happens every 3 months, but it's something I need to do. Or an annual thing that's not necessarily a statutory requirement, but it needs to happen. So for example, a BEE certificate or affidavit that would expire, you would then set a reminder once a year for a particular client, and then it will schedule for you. Likewise, power of attorneys, if you need them to be regularly updated, you can set that. The other thing I think of is random clients who expect our scope of work to be more detailed. Say, for example, you not only do the payroll for them, but you actually load the salaries for them into their FNB bank account. That's an important task to be reminded of, but it's not generally within your scope as an accountant. And so you're going to want to be reminded of that, and the frequency would be specific to that task. So in the specialized scheduler table, you will click add record, and now you name the task whatever makes sense, however you will remember it, and then assign it to the client. You can give it a description. So I'm here going to say Log into FNB once payroll is approved, import net pay, wait for authorization. So you can make that as detailed as you need it to. I'm then going to assign it to a department, which is a fixed dropdown, and this allows your very uniquely named task to still be linked back to your rates. So make sure that you assign that department. You can then assign it to a staff member, and then you customize the frequency. So I'm just going to expand it there. So this is going to be a specific day of the month task, because payroll generally happens around the same time every month. And how our tables work is to the nearest working day. So if we know payroll payday to be the 25th, let's say this particular client likes to load it 2 days before always, so that the staff actually get paid on the 25th. I would then create the specific day of the month as the 23rd. And then if that falls on a weekend, the task will schedule as the 22nd or the 21st, depending on where it falls. So we always go a working day before the date that you specify, so that you don't get a reminder for a Saturday, because that's not going to work. You can then specify how many months every time this should schedule. So if it's a quarterly task, you would set it as every 3. If it's an annual task, you will set it as every 12, etc., etc. So you can really customize how this works, and then the start due date of the task, and how many days before the due date do you want to be reminded of this task. So it's all good and well we set a due date, but if we're not able to plan our time ahead because the task is not scheduled, then you might not be available on that day to pay the salary. So maybe you want to be a little bit ahead of that curve. And so I've given all the information here in order for it to schedule. And I just want to be able to find this one in the current scheduled tasks. But when you click Save and New, in that task table, specialized tasks, it has now scheduled it for me for the 23rd of the following month, because today is the 23rd of November, and then it's going to do the 23rd of Jan, the 23rd of Feb, etc., etc. So you set it up once, and now you have a reminder. You can time on this uniquely named task, because you'll see it's actually going to link it to the payroll department that I scheduled it to. And you can then make notes, as well as also archive each time you complete that current month. And then the next one's going to pop up 4 days before the 23rd of January. It's going to schedule the new task for you. We then have the accounting table, and you'll see earlier I applied a filter. I've left the table, the filter has remained active. So if you come to any table and it looks like there are less records than you're expecting, just make sure that there's no green block here with an active filter, because it remembers what you selected, so you don't have to repeat yourself if you need to leave the table and come back. Okay. So the accounting table is the basics of bookkeeping, from importing the bank statements up until management reports. And you can be reminded of monthly management reports by this tick box. Obviously, in an ideal world, all of our accounting clients get monthly management reports. And the other feature of this table you will set in the client table is the bank statements column. And so what that selection does is it allows you to make a note how you receive the bank statements of this client. Is there a bank feed? Do you have logins maybe to download the statement, or do you need to request it from your client every single month? If you select request statement, we have built an email that will go from Data Grows it will email the contact person in the client's table. It will address them requesting the bank statements for their company for the month that has passed. So if you run the process now today on the 23rd of November, it will not request bank statements for November, but it will ask for October. If in the accounting table, their accounting task says request statements, and there is still an October task that is not yet archived, and the statements received block has not been ticked. Okay, so that automatic email you run in the process table under setup by selecting please send bank statements and changing the action to process and clicking save. You can also automate this email to go out on a specific day of the month. For me, the first of the following month would make sense because then it's handled and it's done. And you as the accountant get copied in the email. And I'll show you now an example. So it emails your clients, it copies you as the accountant requesting the bank statements for the period ended. And if they click reply, it replies to the accountant, and then they can just attach their bank statements. We will not email your clients unless you physically run this process. So that is you giving us permission, but if you do not use this action, we will not email your clients. Okay. And then again, on any task, you can make notes, change the status, and use the bulk action in order to archive a whole bunch of tasks all at once. Then we have the VAT returns that automatically schedule. If you do your upload in November, only your monthly and even vendors will populate in the VAT returns because you cannot complete the odds until November is done. So towards the end of November, probably the 29th or the 30th, all of the December due dates will populate for you, and you can then track through those. And the basic steps are laid out as tick boxes, which you are welcome to use or not. They're not mandatory. You can also make notes of the return type. Is it a payment, a refund, or a null? Has it been paid? And then was a verification selected? Now, I don't think that this is live, but this week we've actually built the feature that if you save this record with the verification ticked in the SARS task table, it will create a task for you for that verification. So it should go out this week that you can then select verification, and it will automatically create a SARS task for you, which I will show you and explain that table in a little while. We then automatically schedule the annual returns based on the entity type and registration date of that company. You can see here we've pulled through the registration number for you, and you can make notes of the annual turnover and the fee that you've paid and then recover it from your client. But basically all the info you need in order to do the annual return is available in one window for you there. Our second manual table is the CIPC tasks, which you will see if you click add record, the kind of tasks available for selection. If there's anything in here or CIPC related that we do not list here, please send us an email and we will add it. But what makes this table special is if you click on a task, you can assign it to a client. You can give it a status in progress, assign it to your staff. But when you click save and edit, the CIPC subtask will become available, and we've listed for you the required documents needed in order to complete that step. And we've given you some templates that you can download and make use of. So if you do not have templates that you use, you're welcome to make use of ours and simply complete your client's information using our template. Okay, they are tried and tested and accepted by CIPC. Once you have received your documents, when you create the transaction with CIPC, so in other words, you've logged into CIPC and you've requested the director detail change, and they have emailed you the COR 39. If you save the date in uploaded, the day that you did that process, and click save, the due date is going to count 10 calendar days from now, so that you know by when you need to complete that, because you know within 10 days you've got to respond to them, or you have to do it a second time. And so from tomorrow, our day counter is going to count for you, and you can keep an eye on the task and make sure that you don't hit those 10 days. It also has now created a little task for you in the CIPC task for the 1st or for the 3rd of December on that due date as well. Okay, so you never have to send your clients to COR 39s to sign again. You can further make notes of when you actually emailed them so that you can keep track of their response and the completed dates and make any notes that you need to over there. Okay, while we're on CIPC related stuff, the client table has 2 special tabs linked to it, specifically for CIPC related or CIPC registered entities. And so if you click on a client record that is a CIPC registered, you will see there that we have a directors tab. And if you just expand that, you can actually capture your directors over here. And why I like this feature is the existing clients tab here. If the director is also a client of yours, in other words, you do their tax as well, you can select their name from the existing client dropdown, and you'll see your client table becomes available. You can then just complete the type of director they are and the date that they were appointed. But all of their personal information that you've already saved for them in the client table, when you click save here, is going to populate in the directors table. So you don't need to capture their information a second time if they are an existing client. If they're not an existing client, use the name field and then complete their information over there. Okay. The second tab is under the CIPC dropdown there called Share Register. This is what I like to call our 30-second share register, because you can literally create a share register and share certificates within 30 seconds. So I'm just going to take a client who might not have one created yet. Okay, so you'll see here the share register is empty. I'm going to say add record and add the shareholder info. Select the class of shares, date issued, and the number of shares. And you can put in the certificate number if it's an existing certificate. Otherwise, if you click save, if it's a new registration, the certificate number and the shareholding percentage will automatically calculate for you. If you then add another shareholder, with information and number of shares, and click save. The next share certificate number will save. The shareholding percentage recalculates itself based on the number of shareholders that are there. And if you click on these certificates, a share certificate generates that you are welcome to use and save as PDF and have signed, populated with the information that you gave it. Should a shareholder leave and sell their shares, you can just save the date that it was seeded. And if you do that, it will recalculate the shareholding percentage for the remaining certificates. You're welcome to cancel them all and issue new ones for the remaining shareholders. But you'll see if you view the one where you saved a date seeded, it now shows as cancelled and the date. Okay, so those tabs you access via the clients table. Our next task is the financials and income tax. Now specifically for CIPC related entities again, who by law should complete at minimum an IT 14, otherwise financials as well. And you can track through that process, also automatically scheduled according to their year end the task was created. You can track through the process of completing the financials, having them approved, and then submitting the income tax return. And what we have made special about this is the progress dropdown. The progress dropdown, you can then select how far you are in the progress. And if you select the option ready for IT submission, if there are two people assigned to this client, one for financials and one for tax, it actually moves the assignment of the task from the person who was assigned to do the financials to the person assigned as the tax role. So it basically shifts the responsibility if it's not the same person who is submitting that tax return as the person who drafted the financials. Okay, and you can make notes and again archive it once it is complete. You can also, for bigger engagements where you might have more than one person responsible for the engagement, you can assign a financials team to them, basically by clicking on financials team and adding your staff, and then all of their all tasks due will link to the due date of that audit and they will be reminded and scheduled for it. In the payroll department, we have compensation fund that we do schedule for. These due dates have just been changed. They should link to the 30th of April for any new clients that you upload. We schedule for EMP Tour 1 returns, and this does link again to working day. So if you look at the 7th of January, for example, being a Saturday, when the January due dates populate, the due date will be the 6th of Jan 2023, so that you're not reminded again of a due date that falls on a Saturday. And you can then track through the EMP Tour 1 over there. We then do schedule for the 501s, which we would have all completed by the end of October. And then the February ones, I think we're going to schedule around the 1st of March, I think, for the end of May deadline. And you can track through that submission. And then we have the payroll, which depending on the cycles you select per client are going to automatically schedule for you. And you can then keep track of the payroll process as well. And then we have the U-filing table. This is going to be for your smaller clients who are not yet registered for pay-as-you-earn, or your domestic employers, where you actually have to declare and pay on U-filing. You can then switch that task on and track for them. In the tax department, we have our income tax individuals. Now, this table is clever enough to actually set the due dates for provisional taxpayers to the end of January. All of the others would have been the 24th of October. That, obviously we would have completed by now. But here you can see these provisional taxpayers still have until the end of January, and you can track through the various options that a client might have in their income structure. Again, make note of what kind of return it is. And in this week, the upgrade is that if you do select the SARS verification, that it will create a SARS task for you in order to track. We then have our provisional tax returns, which are going to schedule around the year end of either your CIPC registered entity or individuals being August and February periods. Okay, so those are going to automatically schedule for you, and you can make notes of the progress there. Then we have the SARS tasks table. This table has over 20 tasks to select from, depending on what you need to do with SARS. And everybody's favorite that we've all struggled with over the last 2 years is the updating of the public officer. Just like the CIPC task table, you're going to have a SARS subtask tab for each of these that will show you the list of documents needed to complete the task and templates that you can download and make use of, like the proof of residence form. You can download a blank one straight off the app. And we've also given you the online query link where you can then upload the documents if you don't want to go the appointment route. Okay. So this gives you everything you need to track, especially when you have new staff join you. We've given you a lot of information in the app to make your training time a lot quicker. And then, like CIPC, if you save the date now for SARS, when you've actually uploaded your documents, so if you've made use of the online query or you've had your appointment, for example, when you click save, the due date is now going to count in working days, 21 from now, when you can follow up with SARS. For a VAT refund verification, you cannot escalate before 21 working days have passed. And so we're going to do the counting for you. You can come to your table and you'll see here we keep track as it goes, and you know exactly when you need feedback by. The ones that take a bit longer, like disputes, we factored in as well, and the due date will calculate accordingly. You can also make notes of your appointment dates here, and it does remind you in your all tasks due. You can save your case number here as well, so that when you're calling SARS to escalate, you basically have all the information available that you'll need right in data grows. And then the last task that we schedule for is turnover tax, and we do first, second, and third submission in one table with the tick boxes for what you basically need in order to submit. And again, you can make note of your appointment date for this manual submission, and you'll be reminded of it in your all tasks due table. In terms of timekeeping and billing reports, I showed you how to push start and stop to keep track of your time. You can also, if you've forgotten to do that, you can add any record for time that was worked manually. You will select the client, you will select the person that did the work, you will assign it again to a department so that the billing will link up. You can make a note and then edit your start and end time and click save. So if you've forgotten to use the start stop timer, you can do that. If you've also forgotten to push stop on a time and the time is really excessive, let's say, for example, this one was not meant to have time for 3 hours, you can also edit a record and it will update the duration of that task for you. As I said, we give you the rounded time that you selected in the setup under firm settings. Then, in terms of the reports available for this, we have the time authorized table, which is a duplicate of the time log, but here you are basically going to mark the time ready for invoicing, mark it as invoiced or mark it as internal. So if it's something you're not necessarily going to invoice for. How I make use of this table is, let's say, for example, I want to bill October time. I'm going to filter on the end or start column, depending on which one you want to reduce the selection on. And I'm going to start from the 1st of October at midnight. And I'm going to end on the 1st of November at midnight, which will include any time worked in October. If I then click apply, I only have October time now in this table. And if I'm happy with everything, I'm happy with the durations, the various clients that have been worked, I'm going to select them all and change the actions to mark as invoice pending. And that is only going to move the time that was in the filter and leave all of the November time still to be billed. Okay. But now in the invoice pending table, we have all of our October time, maybe a bit of time still from September that hadn't yet been billed. And what you'll see here in the status in the time invoice pending table, we tell you if there's any issues with these tasks. So if the task does have a rate group missing or a client, it will indicate that to you and you can then correct that. Then the report to make use of to now go and raise your invoices is the billing report. And that is going to show you per client the various tasks that were worked on, the duration, if it is a fixed or hourly task, the rate group that that task was in, depending on the client that you selected, and then the value that was generated. And I can see the details and create my invoice in my accounting system accordingly. So where we had a small retainer, the included services for that was 2,000 Rand, but then time was worked on other tasks outside of that. So I need to bill them this amount. The other part of that, you're welcome to make use of it, is the invoice table. And what this is basically a preview of your invoice, and you will create that by taking the time in time invoice pending. If you come back to the process table, we have a generate invoices process. And if you change the action to process and click save, all of the time in time invoice pending, where the status was not rate group missing, has now created an invoice. You will see there, it's got attention that clients, the dates and the values. And there is also a tax invoice that you can download. The whole point of this, in terms of your bookkeeping program that you use, whether it's Sage, Xero, etc., is we want to integrate with those programs to basically take this invoice, if you're happy with it, and go and create a tax invoice in your bookkeeping system so that you don't have to go and do that manually. And so that's why I said the more time you spend in the setup of your rate groups and your rates, the easier you will have in terms of doing your billing. because everything is going to populate to the reports. And then once we do connect with your accounting system, you will be able to generate these invoices automatically. We currently do have an API connection with Sage. We're just in the process of fine-tuning it. And then next we are going to connect to Xero as our second accounting system that we work with. The other portion of the billing that you can set up is the fixed fees table. This relates specifically to sort of monthly subscriptions that you maybe cover on behalf of your clients, whether it's their Sage accounting, their Xero, even the payroll subscription. You can then add the invoice description for that, select the client, the billing frequency that it applies, the amount that you bill them for, and then the start and end month, so that you know when an increase comes in, you know exactly when to come and change that increase. So Sage, for example, in October, their subscriptions went up. And so my start month would be November to October every year, so that I know when the increase is going to happen. Okay, and then this also pulls through to that billing report, depending on how you've set it up, so that you know exactly what to bill back from your clients. The last thing I want to show you is the services not used dashboard. And this reviews your client table based on their entity type and the services that you've switched on for them. So here, Carl J South Africa is a PTY limited, but you've selected payroll for them and not EMP 201 or EMP 501 returns. So we're saying to you, are you sure you should not be reminded of this task? Maybe the client does it themselves, or maybe somebody else does, but we've given you that hint there. And so if you click on Carl J, it will take you to the client table and filter on their name. And if it is an error on your part, you can simply switch on those two tasks. If you click save and go back to the services not used, you will see Carl J will no longer be on the table because you've made all the corrections that you needed to. It also allows you to maybe increase your scope. Say, for example, it's a relatively new client and you did their first annual return for them. We're showing you all of the possible services you can offer them, and perhaps you can quote them and expand what you do for that client. If there is anything you need assistance with, there is a help icon at the bottom of your table tree, and you just complete your email and send a message, and it will go straight to support, and our support team is very quick to respond. You will also see the email address at the bottom there, as well as our WhatsApp and telephone number. Okay. Thank you so much for joining us. Don't hesitate to reach out if there's any feedback for us, any features that you're unsure of, any improvements that you'd like us to add. We are very engaged with all of our users to make sure that how you use the app makes sense, and that it's constantly improving. So please don't hesitate to reach out.